Hi, welcome to the Catch the Tornado podcast. Brink Commerce is a high-performing, serverless, headless e-commerce SaaS platform for medium to large-scale enterprise customers. Today, Piotr speaks to Kristian Tysander, the co-founder and CEO of Brink Commerce, who has not only helped build the business from the ground up, but has also had a huge impact on the architecture behind it. Kristian shares with the listeners the three main principles that Brink Commerce follow in the way that they have designed their ecom architecture that makes their system so reliable and unique at the same time. Kristian also shares his view on microservices versus monolithic architecture in terms of global scale, speed, and efficiency, and reveals why subscription management and adding marketing features to their offer is the company's direction for the future. Tune in.
Hello everyone, I'm super excited to host Kristian Tysander in today's episode. Kristian is a founder of Brink Commerce, a serverless, high-performing headless e-commerce platform offered at a flat transactional rate. And I'm super happy to discuss why do we need another platform today, what makes it unique, and how they get started. Hi Kristian, nice to meet you.
Hi Piotr, thanks for having me.
Thanks for accepting the invitation. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I've been active in the e-commerce industry since 2007. I started out as a merchant together with my brother. We have basically sold everything you can think of, from plastic colorful watches to thin silk ties.
So you have e-commerce shops before?
Yes.
So you started as a merchant, having this experience from the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And my brother always took care of the marketing and product design, and I handled the technical stuff, and that's how everything started.
Awesome. That sounds perfect. I read on your LinkedIn that you also had some episode in the army forces.
Yeah. When we started out, we were quite young. I think I was 23 at the time or something like that. So we were still in school or in university. After doing some ventures together as merchants, I studied abroad in Australia for a year. And when I came back, my brother had already started Daniel Wellington. Back then, it was a very small company in running from a basement in Uppsala with him and one other employee. So I was looking for a job. I started out in the Swedish Armed Forces as a systems engineer doing operation stuff.
Did it contribute anyhow to your further career?
I think I saw it as a start to be part of a bigger context. They have like a long historic background from hosting and operating very sensitive systems. So I wanted to build upon that. I was actually most interested in like the hosting systems administration parts in the beginning. And after a year there, if you know me as a person, I can get pretty restless. So I started to look for another challenge, and I saw an ad on like the local internet for the Swedish Special Operations Forces. They were looking for technical personnel. So I sent in an application, did some tests and some basic training, and then I was accepted into that.
Awesome. And how you got from the Special Forces to funding the Brink Commerce?
After a couple of years in the Swedish soft community, I felt that I was traveling a lot. I spent more nights away than home with my family eventually. And I felt that, me and my wife was expecting our first child, and I was looking for something more stable. So one day my brother asked me that Daniel Wellington had started to really take off. He has started to hire some people. They have gained some traction, and he asked me, none of these. We only have external suppliers for all IT, and they can't keep up with the pace we want to try to hold here. So he was asking me, can you take a look? and I felt that this could be a good opportunity, and in order for me to transition over to something new.
So you joined him as a kind of CTO?
Yeah, I accepted his invite. I came in first as a consultant, just looking over everything, and I felt that, you know, in order to do what needs to be done, and I was listening to his vision together with his CEO, his newly appointed CEO, and I felt that, you know, you need to take responsibility for this by yourself. You need to start hiring developers. You can't rely on consulting firms. So I did like a brief overview, and I told them that we can do it like this. I can start hiring developers within my firm, and we can do like an invoice one-to-one. If it doesn't play out the way you want it to do, you can just distance yourself from it. It's a low risk where we can start hiring developers. So we did that, and I basically became CTO and started to hire developers.
And what you built there for Daniel Wellington became kind of foundation for Brink Commerce platform?
Yeah, I would say back in I think it was 2014, we did like a flash sale campaign in China. We were early into China, and we hosted our own like Magento platform inside mainland China. And there was a specific moment where me and my operations guy and another developer, we were just kicking back at the office, and the marketing team had prepared a flash campaign where the first 50 customers were to receive a free watch strap. And we thought back then that we had set everything up properly, you know, we can handle the pressure. But, you know, in hindsight, we didn't understand Chinese shopping culture at all. So when the clock hit midnight, I think it was like 6 o'clock in Sweden, it took 30 seconds, and then like alarms started to go off. Everything just went black. and we didn't understand what has happened, you know. Did we lose the connection to Asia, or what's going on? But after looking, we did like a quick post-mortem in the database, and we saw that Magento managed to register 291 orders during the first 30 seconds, and then it basically collapsed.
That's really awesome. For Magento, it sounds like it's reached the roof very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's pushing the limits. We think the actual amount of orders were much higher. These was only the orders that Magento managed to register. So I think that was an important aha moment for me and my team, that, you know, these systems, they're not constructed to cope with this kind of shopping behavior, you know.
So what makes Brink Commerce different? Because I really like the value proposition you had. I read it about when you announced, I suppose it was when you announced your first round, investment round, and this value prop was hyper reliability, meaning it's a platform that never goes down, like it never fails. How you make it happen?
We make it happen by a couple of principles that we try. I want to try to keep it high level. I'm not a developer, but we apply a couple of principles, and that mainly consists of the fact that we're doing everything like microservice architecture. We try to apply a shared nothing approach, where all of the services are independent. They can't share any data stores or anything. And then we try to apply, or not try to apply, but we apply an event-driven design. So we try to consume and produce, and everything is producing notifications that you can subscribe upon. So the idea here is to create a stable enough system that can push. If we take an order, for example, we can push events and orders further downstream and try to avoid that you have like a hard dependencies between services. So we can create an order, and then we can push it to the next service and to the next service and to the next service. And by doing so, And also making sure that all of the services, all of the third party, all of the managed services we use, everything is run on serverless infrastructure.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's super interesting. And you mentioned serverless, and on our pre-call when we prepared for this interview, I noted that this is super important for the whole thing. Why is it so important? I mean, the serverless architecture.
Serverless infrastructure is a technique where the cloud providers take a bigger responsibility than you're normally used to when you're running like virtual servers. When you're running virtual servers, they give you the option to manage the actual the OS of the server. They're doing this for you, so the handover is much smoother. It's much more elastic. What we're basically doing is that we insert code into a cloud provider and say that this code is being supposed to be run on a certain event, for example.
Yes. So you deploy the function and it should just work, and you don't need to take care of logs, rotation, I don't know, system maintenance, anything.
Exactly. And the ability for these functions to scale when the code is like floating, the functions are floating on top of it, it makes it much more scalable.
But isn't it making the things a little bit more complex? I mean, you know, when the commerce platform were more monolithical, it was very easy to orchestrate everything. And here you have those functions that need to talk to each other via this event buses, as you said. Isn't things even more complex? And I was always thinking like with complexity comes a little bit less of reliability because there is more things that can fail, isn't it like this?
Yeah, I would say, to try to answer your questions, there are some disadvantages for sure. You have more like virtualization layers than you're used to, so it can add a couple of milliseconds in latency. You will never be as fast as if you run it on your own hardware, you know. Here you have a couple of virtualization layers, so in a vertical sense, it's a bit slower, but the big advantage is that you can scale it horizontally. So much better. So even though a competitor can be faster local in one region because they're closer to the hardware, we can be maybe a bit slower in a vertical sense, but we can be much more scalable in a global sense, horizontally.
I think it makes a lot of sense because, you know, those latencies you mentioned probably are not that significant per each individual user. I think it's something like in milliseconds, so you can deal with it anyway. But the advantage is that with this geo distribution also, and the whole, you know, cloud provider managing your infrastructure, because this is what serverless is actually. With all those, the benefits are still bigger because your platform is faster the global way, as I can say. Yeah,
exactly.
It works for bigger number of users.
Yeah, and that's how we try to visualize it. Is that if you take a traditional platform and you host it in Europe, you have, let's say, 200 milliseconds response time from within Europe, and we might have 300 milliseconds, so we're a bit slower. But if you apply the same thing to a customer that has customers from Australia, we can also be in Australia. We can scale out.
So you can have still 300 milliseconds, and those guys can be 1.5 seconds in this case.
Exactly. Head on point. And that's exactly why we're trying to do it. And we also think that it's going to be more and more important, in a sense where the e-commerce market is growing so rapidly. I know a lot of customers or potential customers that had problem when the e-commerce penetration was, I don't know, 15-20%. During the past 12 to 18 months, during Corona, at least in the United States, the penetration has grown from 15 to 30%. What are these companies feeling when we went from 15? They were in pain at 15%. What are they feeling now? What are they going to feel when we reach 50%? You know what I mean? So I think it's getting more and more important to be able to scale.
Absolutely, I think that makes perfect sense. I'm curious the feedback you are getting from the market. It's early market, isn't it? Right? You are not that long gone. Actually, when you started with selling this platform?
When we started to sell it, our first customer went live in September, little over a year ago, in September of 2020. So we have been live for 13, almost 14 months now, and the feedback has been very positive. Most of our customers aren't that technical. I think they see an upside in like, we always identify three things that sooner or later every e-commerce company will realize, is that either you get performance issues, you get like lock-in effects, you can't access your data the way you want to, and everything gets really, really complicated after a while. The time to market is really long, and I think the biggest benefit our customers see now is that they're much faster in like the transition in time to market. When the front end is decoupled, they can move much faster. They can focus on the customer experience. So that's one of the biggest benefits they see in the short term. The next one is, as we move or progress behind the fact that they can move in the pace they want to, they start to look at what data are being produced within Brink. What can we see? What can we do? So they start to open up and think about how can we use this data to move even faster, take better decisions, and that's something they're not used to. So that's something we're helping them with now. We're giving them access to a lot of data that has been unavailable before. And I think, to be honest, the performance things are benefits that most companies, as long as you don't suffer from it, you just take it for granted. So I think they're really benefiting from moving faster and be able to work more with the data to take better decisions on.
It's actually a good point you mentioned that the performance is something that makes sense with a scale for customers. So if you are upstarter, you're probably not thinking about it, and then when the scale grows up, you see some needs for performance improvements. My question is, what's your market strategy? How you aim for those clients that already are on the market, maybe experienced some problems with performance? Is it the best segment for you, or maybe you aim differently?
Yeah, we started out with like kind of small merchants just to get some early adopters, and we're trying to climb the ladder and get higher and higher up. So we're trying to target more like enterprise customers. In that sense, they're not traditionally enterprise. It can be direct to consumer brands, but they have big volumes. So that's the market, like mid to enterprise, that we want to try to get into, or we feel that we already are. We're working with customers like Axel Arigato, for instance. And one of the value propositions there is that they really feel that as further they go into their like online journey, the more complicated everything gets. It's like, for them, it's like walking in quicksand, So when we talked to one of the founders there, and we were talking about like performance, and he just stopped us and said that, this is not the biggest issue for us right now. The biggest issue is that I wanted them to deploy like a really simple feature, just a general feature that you as on the commercial side take for granted. My developers have been working on it for like 6 weeks, and that's something that's restricting us from doing or executing our plan. Everything for them is about the customer experience. We want to try to improve the customer experience every day in like everything from the visual stuff, how they communicate with their customers and everything. That's what we want to focus on. And we can't have a solution where it takes us 6 weeks to deploy a simple feature. So we're trying like the value add where we're trying to simplify everything. They can move faster. Everything takes less time. We're trying to decouple everything and makes it much more easy. And in that particular case, they want to try to focus on the front end, on the customer experience, and we let them do that, and we take care of the rest. So I think that it loops back to like the time to market. They're faster to market with new features.
Absolutely, makes sense. My last question is on the product strategy. I mean, which features can we expect in the foreseeable future?
Yeah. We have, in the beginning, we were mainly driven on like customer feedback. So we have a product roadmap that existed of the most prioritized features from some of our larger clients. Now we're trying to stay one step ahead. We're really looking into more advanced like subscription management. That's something we want to try to focus on. And we also want to focus on building a much more advanced like price, rules, logic, graphical user interface, where customers can post campaigns in a better way, in a free way where they're not restricted as they are traditionally. So we want to give them a larger freedom in creating campaigns.
So marketing features are the things.
But we're staying strict within our scope in terms of like price, rules, logic. We will never try to compete with any type of like CRM or email marketing system in that sense. So it's only price, rules, logic. And subscription management. I think that's something that's really going to boom, or it is booming right now, and it's going to get even bigger. And I think we see a glitch in the market there. You have your PSPs, your payment providers. A lot of them can do recurring billing, but most of them they don't do subscription management at the moment. So you have a lot of players popping up like ChargeBee, and there's just a bunch of them like trying to tap a piece of the market there. So I think we're going to see some competition between like subscription management providers and payment providers. And I also think that more and more platform providers is going to try to get in on that, because that's something that's going to grow and be really, really big.
That's interesting. Okay, that was my last question, Kristian. Thank you very much for your time and for conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, Piotr. It was a pleasure.